I want to start with part of this that you were, at least literally, figuratively, in the center of. That was those demonstrations there at Lafayette Park going across the St. John's Church. For people who don't know the geography of Washington, your AFL-CIO headquarters are right there on that block with St. John's Church. As I understand, there was damage done. So who was responsible? What happened?
There was some damage done. It was some errant people. I mean, they weren't peaceful protesters. They were some people trying to take advantage of the situation to create chaos. And, you know, it just proved one thing, David. The AFL-CIO is not a building. We're a group of living people that have arms locked together to try to bring social justice back to America.
So let's talk about the social justice, because every institution is confronting this right now in the wake of the George Floyd killing. How is it affecting your members? How is it affecting your operations? How do you deal with the question of inherent racism in our system?
I think it affects every American out there, regardless of your color, race, or sex, or anything else. And so what we're trying to do is focus on three things. Look, we have three crises going on simultaneously right now. We have the health crisis, we have the economic free fall, and then we have the crisis of structural discrimination. And we're trying to do all of those together. We have an emergency meeting of our Civil and Human Rights and our Policy Committee today to talk about those and a course of action and how we can be better, effective, and do more to reform the criminal reform movement, how we can do more to end racism in the country, whatever form it comes in, because it's a labor issue to us because it's so endemic in the workplace. And so we consider it a labor issue. We're struggling with it like everybody else, but we intend to be at the forefront of the solutions.
What about policing reform? We know that Speaker Pelosi says that she wants to have a bill as early as Monday about policing reform. Part of the AFL-CIO is the International Union of Police Associations. What about the police unions? To what extent do they have responsibility? To what extent can they be part of the solution here?
Well, look, here's the way we look at it. We have a number of unions that have police officers in them. And, you know, people have said, why don't you cut ties with them? First and foremost, we believe police officers and everyone who works for a living has the right to collective bargaining. And there are officers of every color, every background, and every stripe in America in those unions. And the vast majority are good people committed to protecting and serving their communities. Second, we believe everyone who breaks the law must be held accountable, including union members. We can never and will never justify criminal activity. Third, collective bargaining is not the enemy. The enemy is a broken justice system that in too many cases fails to hold perpetrators of police violence accountable. And finally, we believe that the best way to use our influence on the issue of police misconduct is to engage with our police affiliates rather than isolate them. We're committed to doing what's hard and meaningful instead of what's quick and easy.
Do you think things will be changed? Do you think there will be police reform, either whether through legislation, through collective bargaining, some other way? Do you think things will change going forward with respect to how we police our police?
I absolutely do think that, because all of us are committed and determined to make that happen. We're not going to let this opportunity just be another in a long line of injustices and discrimination toward people of color. I think the killing of George Floyd was the absolute straw that broke the camel's back. And so we're determined, we're joining with our allies, our friends, our community groups to make sure that this is an opportunity where we do change things. And as President Obama said, it's not like we don't have the playbook. We do have the playbook to make this happen. We just have to make sure that the playbook gets executed and followed. And we're determined to join with groups like Black Lives Matter and other groups to make sure that those reforms are not only instituted, but lived by from here on out.
So Richard, the police members who are members of your union are only some of the state and local employees that you represent. Talk to us about the stimulus, the so-called stimulus package. We heard different reports On the one hand, Nancy Pelosi wants to go ahead right away, the Speaker of the House. President Trump says there's not that big a rush, although we may need something. The jobs numbers today, does they take some of the steam out of getting some more stimulus soon?
Well, David, just let me reconcile the figures first. In May, we added 2.5 million jobs. But remember, in March and April, we lost 22 million. So we're still down 19.6 million jobs. The official unemployment rate is 13.3%, and that's a welcome improvement over April. But aside from April, it's still worse than anything we've seen since the Great Depression. And the unemployment rate does not reflect all coronavirus-related job losses. In fact, only about two-thirds of the people who remain out of work as a result of the virus are showing up unemployed. Listen to this. About 15%, or 4.9 million, of those out of work because of the virus are being misclassified. They've been furloughed. They should have been counted as unemployed or temporarily laid off, but instead they're being counted as employed but not at work. And roughly a fifth, or 6.6 million of those out of work because of the virus are being counted as having dropped out of the labor force. That's because jobless people only get counted as unemployed if they're actively seeking work, which remains impossible for a number of them. So if all 32.5 million workers who are out of work as a result of the virus has shown up as unemployed, the unemployment rate would have been 19.7% in May instead of 13.3. 19.7 or 13.3 demands immediate action. It doesn't say wait. And by the way, 16.2 million people have already lost their health care, and more every day. That has to be remedied. The HEROES Act has to be passed.
So all that said, how confident are you that the HEROES Act will be passed, and more important perhaps, when?
Well, the pressure continues to build. If you look at the rate right now in Kentucky, in Mitch McConnell's home state, you have over 40% of the people in Kentucky of pre-pandemic labor force have filed for regular unemployment benefits. 40% in his own state. And he says, wait, there's nothing to do. And if you're in Georgia, it's actually 45%. Numbers are staggering. And so the pressure continues to build, and he continues to do nothing at his own peril. He and other people running on that same do-nothing ticket, or let's wait, while people suffer, and die, and get laid off more and more. He does so at his own peril. So I think the pressure mounts. I think we do get the HEROES Act passed, and I think we get it done in the month of June.